Hey y'all, my name is Ivana Ramirez and I'm a 2020 graduate of the Riverside High School Speech and Debate team. As a little bit of background about me, like I mentioned, I graduated in 2020. I'm on a gap year right now, attending Yale University next fall. And while I was in speech and debate, I competed in a range of events in all three categories plus Congress, including duo, extemp, oratory, and the like. I'm here on behalf of Beyond Resolve South Carolina in order to talk to you a little bit about my speech and debate career, my experience as a Hispanic woman in the context of debate, and also just giving you a little bit of advice on how I mastered different kinds of debate events. I know per the request of the BR chair that this speech is supposed to be more of a TED Talk, standing up, traditional speech and debate style, but the way that I see it, when it comes down to the skills that you learn in speech and debate, it's not so that you can learn how to stand up in front of an audience using pre-used extemp gestures in order to convey your message. The biggest lesson that I took from being on a speech and debate team and spending time honing those skills is how to communicate with other people and really get across my ideas and experiences to them. So I decided to make it a little bit more casual, sit back and tell you a little bit about my time on the Riverside Speech and Debate team. Throughout my speech and debate career, I participated in several debate events and also experienced a lot of the misogyny and sexism that comes with that. Like I talk about with a lot of my friends, for most of the time, judges would focus on how short my skirt was or how overbearing or rude I would seem compared to my male competitors if I tried to assert the same amount of dominance or authoritativeness as they did. A lot of the time that comes with preconceived notions about how women are, especially within the context of debate. When it comes down to being a female in debate, that really just means that you have to learn to be okay with accepting yourself as a woman and also pushing forward to stand up for yourself within the debate sphere. I know a lot of people across many circuits across the country who are coming to terms with their own sort of Me Too movements, with different struggles that they had either within a round and judges or even at home with their coaches and experiencing many different aspects of sexual harassment and abuse. Although I never had any personal experiences with that, I can attest to the fact that coaches and judges and even other competitors alike definitely have a preconceived notion when they see a girl about to enter a debate round. For example, I remember one time at North Mecklenburg, my novice year, I was about to go up against a senior in a Lincoln Douglas round, and sitting outside the room, he was talking about how he had won so many rounds before and at other tournaments, and how he was sure to win this one too, right in my face, his competitor. And when he got to the end of his little rant, he told me that because I was a girl, it would probably be very easy to beat me. And being the kind of competitor that I was respectful to him and I kept my disdain to myself and went into that round and won it. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken away after going through many years of the program is that you're going to face those sorts of instances and you're going to have judges that disagree with how you dress or competitors that disagree with your gender or sexuality. And at the end of the day, it's really about showing them the kind of person that you are and how much of a force you are to be reckoned with, instead of getting all up in someone's face and giving them the satisfaction of seeing you react like that. And I think at the end of the day, when it comes to being a woman in debate, it's really about showing your strength from the inside and letting your performance, whether it's an actual debate round, an extemp round, or even in a duo round, letting your performance speak for itself and show the kind of character that you have and the kind of person that you are. I'm in the not very unique position of also being a minority, a Hispanic, in the speech and debate community as well. I am traditionally from the Dominican Republic and subscribe a lot to my Dominican roots because both of my parents are from there too. I think the discrimination that I faced in the speech and debate community was less so from a racial standpoint than from a gender or sex standpoint, but there was definitely some instances that were difficult to deal with being a Hispanic woman in speech and debate. I think a lot of that came from when I was competing in oratory, the issues that I would have to grapple with and unravel in order to have an effective speech ultimately always tied back to my racial identity and the fact that I'm a girl. And I think, although it wasn't an example of discrimination or racism, it definitely forced me to do a lot of growing up and really examine my racial identity and how that also couples with the fact that, for the most part, I was raised in the United States. So a few drafts of a few oratories that I did really honed in on those racial identities and the fact that I see myself both as a Dominican and as an American. And I think coming from my racial background, it really helped for me to grow up a lot. And being in speech and debate helped me figure out the things that I was feeling, how that manifested itself in my life, how to fix the ways that it showed up poorly in my day-to-day routine, and really figure out who I am and who I would like to be in the future. And a lot of that came from competing with so many other strong women and other strong minorities around me, especially in my first 2 years on the team, since I was an upperclassman in my third year, seeing so many of the mentors that I had around me who dedicated themselves so much every single day to every novice or second year on the team, to making sure that all of their extemp speeches were filled with just enough analysis, that all of their debate cases were wrapped up perfectly with a little bow on top. It really gave me a model of the kind of woman that I want to be in the future. And that largely comes from observing the women around me. And I am very lucky to have been on a team that had a lot of very strong women on it that gave me so many examples, even of the underclassmen once I became older, of the kind of generosity, strength, and sometimes ferociousness of the kind of girl that I want to be and the kind of leader that I want to be. I think for me, a large thing that I had to overcome, which helped being on a team with a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds, was being okay with talking like this, instead of thinking that a good speech meant good in the sense of perfect, in the sense of robotic and each word perfectly calculated and with any stuttering at all. A good speech meant a speech that touched a lot of people. On my team, we have a female coach who told me that lesson explicitly right before nationals in Dallas. I was competing in oratory, and she told me that no matter how many times I stuttered in the speech or forgot a part of the speech or felt like the speech wasn't perfect as it was meant to be on paper, as long as someone can come up to you, or even if it happens within themselves, once you're finished speaking, and the fact that your speech went through to them in some way and you were able to touch them in some way, that is the most important, if not only, indicator of a successful speech. And I think coming to terms with that lesson and being okay with experimenting on changing my pitch in speaking and slowing down and speeding up and not not furrowing my eyebrows all the time so I would look angry because I was focusing so much. Learning all of those lessons in public speaking really helped me to relax a little bit and enjoy and actually convey my message more effectively and in a way that was more likely to elicit an emotional response from my audience, which was the goal. And I remember at the end of that tournament, in my third round, one of my competitors actually came up to me after my speech and told me how the way that I delivered it and the message itself really resonated with them and actually made them feel like they weren't alone in a situation that they were encountering at the time. And I think that was probably one of the most rewarding experiences in my time on the team, and really helped solidify that lesson that just because you mess up a few times in your speech, as long as you're able to communicate and make someone think about a question that you're answering in extemp, or consider the humor in your humorous interpretation piece, or really hear your life story in an oratory, that's enough. And that's definitely something that I had to learn. The most important lesson that I learned in debate, specifically Lincoln Douglas, as a woman, is to never, ever be afraid to speak up for yourself. If you feel that a male, female, or non-binary competitor is talking down to you or is not respecting what you're saying at the time, it's definitely okay to insist that you're speaking, like Kamala Harris, and take the time that you need. I know a lot of girls who will remind themselves that they need to take up space and be okay with being the center of attention, because if it's your time to assert your assigned position on resolution, that's the moment that you have, and it's nobody's right or responsibility to take that over. So whether it be in a round while you're presenting and asserting yourself there, in practice when it comes to the bottom line of your case, take advice, but at the end of the day, be confident in your own decisions and the direction and the message that you want to convey. And I think that's probably the most important lesson that I'd ever learned as a girl in debate. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I know this is probably not a very traditional style, but like I said earlier, at the end of the day, after all of my time on speech and debate, all of the mornings waking up early and nights going to bed late from researching a resolution that I have no idea what it's talking about the first few times, I've really learned that it's most important to take away the skills that allow for you to really touch other people. And that doesn't necessarily mean standing with perfect posture and enunciating your words perfectly every time, although it is useful to know that. But ultimately, just make sure that you're reaching out to people as much as possible.